Welcome back to the Sandwich Sock series. If you guessed that the next pair was representing lettuce, you win 100 imaginary internet points. When I show you the yarn I found for these, you are not even going to believe how perfect it is. I cannot stop laughing about how perfect this yarn is. The majority of the sock is going to be made in Cascade Heritage, which is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, in the color Jasmine Green. I cannot get over this color. And of course, because it's lettuce, these socks need a ruffle. I haven't done a ruffle before, so that's one new skill, but we are adding two new skills on these socks because for the ruffle, I will be adding a strand of merino. This one is Lanes du Nord, pardon my pronunciation, Cash Silk Light, in the color Acid Green. It is a 68% merino, 22% silk, 10% cashmere. This is so soft. This is so soft. And the color is a little bit lighter than the Cascade yarn, which I think is going to work out perfectly since lettuce isn't all one color anyway. So let's get started and I'll tell you about the pattern. This was the Robert Socks pattern on Ravelry, and when I downloaded it, apparently it was also the Solid Socks Mystery Knit Along for June and July 2013 by Christy Payne. I picked it because of the ruffle at the top, which I ended up modifying, but we'll get to that. This is a top-down pattern, and I have to be honest, I didn't love it. It wasn't very intuitive. There were a few parts of it I had absolutely no idea what the pattern was trying to say, and I think that may have been due to either it being only my fourth pair of socks ever, or possibly actually to a pattern that just wasn't written very clearly. The end of the row changed locations, the stitch counts didn't always match up correctly, and generally it was kind of a pain. So of course, I modified it to do more than the pattern called for. This was the first modification, and definitely the biggest one. I knit a second ruffle for each sock out of just the mohair blend. And I started with that one since I knew I'd have to add it on to the rest of the sock once I reached that point. Anyway, this mohair ruffle was, to put it tactfully, a cautionary tale. I know people either seem to love working with mohair or hate it, and I am not sure I love it. It sticks to itself so much that it was hard to see the stitches sometimes, although, to be fair, some of that may have been due to the color. Then I twisted the round when I attached the ends together, so I had to unpick everything back to that point, and then I forgot a stitch marker, so at that point I said F it and just put the stitch marker in on the next round. My face doesn't have much of an inside voice, so if you see me straight up glaring at the yarn, that's what's going on here. And if that wasn't enough, once I finally got the stitch marker on there, I quickly, but not quite quickly enough, found out that I had started knitting that row with the tail yarn instead of the working yarn, and then I had to unpick the whole row again. Did I mention that it's hard to see the stitches? I'll walk you through the modifications I made in case you want to make this pattern for yourself and have your own set of lettuce socks, but you will need the pattern to follow along. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. You can find the link in the description if you want to try it out. This is, shockingly, another free pattern from Ravelry, so I shouldn't complain too much about the quality. Besides, it turned out to be amazingly cute once I modified a few things. I walked away for a while after I finished this mohair ruffle, and then when I felt better about it, I came back and I finished it up. One of the things I've learned over the last few years is how to take a break. This sounds like it should be super simple, right? Just take a break. But I used to struggle to put things down, even mentally. I always thought if I can just get through this section, if I can just finish this one more bit, then I'll be over the difficult part and I can move on. Except if the problem is that I'm making a lot of mistakes because of brain fog or something like that, then frustration is going to cause me to make even more mistakes. And before you know it, I've torn out the same section literally 4 times. So if you have the same issue as me when it comes to taking a break, it is a worthwhile skill to cultivate. When you've truly had a break, you can come back to the project and feel better about it. And when you feel better about it, sometimes it actually works better too. But I was still relieved to get to the end of the mohair ruffle. Once the mohair ruffle was complete, I put it on a different cord just to hold the stitches and used some end stoppers to keep it separate while I knit the first ruffle, even though I knit it second. Sorry, I could have described that a bit clearer. For the original ruffle described in the pattern, there we go, I held the mohair strand together with the Cascade Heritage, so the ruffle would be a medium-toned green, which worked perfectly. Except for the part where, wouldn't you know it, I twisted the round again and had to unpick and start over. But then, that was my fault, not the fault of the yarn. I dropped the mohair off of that ruffle before the last round so that the gathers wouldn't be quite as bulky, since I already knew I was going to add the mohair ruffle on top anyway, and this wasn't going to be visible at all. Side note, once this was finished, this was absolutely the correct choice. This is one of the choices I made in this pattern that I'm genuinely pleased with. Then, after the final purl row in the cuff, I added another purl row, attached the mohair ruffle by doing a knit 2 together row to join the stitches, and then added one more purl row before starting the pattern for the leg. This was absolutely hands down the most fiddly, annoying bit of any pattern I have attempted so far in this series. If I have complained about anything before, go ahead and disregard it, because attaching this extra ruffle onto these socks was the most obnoxious, stitch-dropping thing I have ever attempted. I am not sure how much I cursed while doing this one single row, but I can assure you it was a lot. I'm not actually showing you a clip of that because even with editing out all of the audio, I couldn't make the footage obscure enough that I thought the video would be allowed to stay up. So, skipping ahead to the leg. Because the leg is meant to fold over, it's worked backward, which if you've been following along with this series, you know I do not love purling on these tiny little needles, especially because it aggravates my joints. But I persevered, and I'm so glad I did because it looks adorable. After the pattern is worked, the bit that folds over and actually holds the sock on your leg is a 1x1 rib. That went by pretty quickly. I was very confused about this part until I realized that when the decorative part folds over, it hides that 1x1 rib. So it helps it fit on your ankle, but you never actually have to see it. Here's a point of view so you can actually see the somewhat weird way I do my pearls. I know I've talked about this in other videos, but I'm not sure I've really shown you how I do this. I have suspicions this is because I learned to crochet literally decades before I learned to knit, but I control the working yarn in my left hand and I find it so much easier to tension the working yarn with my thumb for purl stitches. Then it was on to the heel. The heel was a new type of heel I haven't done before, and it was reinforced by slip stitches. It was annoying to work on, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I do like the effect that it gives, and it probably is stronger than a regular non-reinforced heel. One small issue that I had was the way the heel decreases were described. Maybe, like I've said, this is just because I haven't done a lot of knitting before, but I was really glad that I had done socks with a heel flap and gusset already, because otherwise I think I would have been totally lost. I only got through this because I knew what it was supposed to look like at the end, and I already knew kind of how it was going to go together. This is where I had some severe questions about whether it was me or whether it was the pattern. I had to take out and restart the heel turn multiple times because the stitch counts kept being off. But then when I did the second one, it worked okay because I just adjusted things based on what happened when I did the first sock. So I still have no idea if it's me or the pattern. Then onto the body of the sock, the foot part. What do you call this part of the sock? The part that goes around your foot. You get this really fun diamond pattern in a fairly easy repeat. It looks so much more complicated than it was, and it worked up surprisingly quickly. Also, I have to say, this sock looks hilarious when it's all stretched out like this. Because the cuff is meant to be folded, when it's unfolded, it just looks silly. Looking at it makes me feel a little bit like I've surprised a Muppet in the bath or something. Like all the other issues I've had with this pattern, the toe decreases are unusual. The decreases aren't worked at the edges of the toe to make like a little toe wedge. They're worked sort of all the way around, except you can't divide the stitch count neatly in half and have it still work out at the end of a decrease. So I had to do some kind of weird little maneuvers once I switched to DPNs. Then the way it had you tie off the toe for the bind off didn't really make sense to me either, so I just kind of messed with it until it looked okay. I'm pretty sure this one is on me, but I think it turned out fine, even if I didn't do exactly what the pattern recommended. Overall, I don't love the pattern, and I don't think I would do at least some of the parts of this pattern again. I really do enjoy the overall effect though. Like, I think the socks look exactly like lettuce. I'm not thrilled with most of the execution of the pattern, I guess is how I could put this. But I really, really love the design. I think that's what I want to say about it. I'm not thrilled with the way the pattern has you do things, but I am thrilled with the effect in the end. Oh my gosh, these have cat hair all over them. I'm so sorry. Even with the toe and like the way that this looks just like the bottom part of like a romaine lettuce. It's amazing. I love it. I would have to think really hard if I was going to do this pattern again. So I will say this may be because of my inexperience. Please remember, this is my 4th pair of socks ever, and there's a lot going on here. So if you are a more experienced sock person than I am, you may have no problem with this pattern. You may love it. It may be exactly what you're looking for. And you may even find places where I've definitely made mistakes. I'm going to go ahead and leave the pattern for you in the description so that if you want to try these out for yourself, you totally can. As a quick reminder, it does not include this extra little mohair ruffle on the top. I did add that in, but you can go back to the earlier part in the video for more clear instructions on how I did that, or at least as clear as I can make them. But this brings us to the end of the lettuce socks, which means There are only 2 pairs of socks left in this series. I'm sorry, I can't. I can see the little like screen, so I know what's going on. These look so much like lettuce. I'm not getting over it. But now that we have finished the lettuce socks, only 2 pairs left. What do you think the next one's gonna be? I'll give you a hint. You're probably not gonna guess it, but I will give you a hint. It has stripes. So color work on this next one, which is a new skill I haven't done before. But let me know what you think it's gonna be. I'm so excited about it. I am giddy about how much I love these. If you haven't caught the earlier socks in the sandwich sock series and you want to go back and get the ketchup and mustard and also the hamburger socks, you know where to find them. Also, consider liking or subscribing so that you get the rest of the series and that you don't miss out on any of these ridiculous sandwich socks. I will be right here still making ridiculous socks. I am so glad you could be here today, and I will see you soon with the next in the sandwich sock series.